We've seen that there's been this announcement that both countries within the EU as well as the US are able to come to the UK from next week without having to quarantine, except for France. Now, the decision to move France onto this complicated Amber Plus list is to do with its high incidence rate of the Beta variant, although there are other countries in the EU that also have quite a lot of the Beta variant as well, Spain in particular. Why are we singling out France in this instance?
So France and that decision was taken because scientists came to the government outside of the usual 3-week review period, in fact, and said, look, we've got a particular concern here. You'll remember that the Beta variant came from South Africa, and viewers might recall we put South Africa very quickly on the red list. And as a result, we've not suffered very many cases at all of the Beta variant in the UK. What we have seen, though, in our nearest neighbour, and I think this probably answers your question, very close to us and therefore very easy for people to travel, and large numbers of people do, the prevalence of the Beta variant. At that moment, a couple of weeks ago, the Prime Minister and Health Secretary considered that they wanted to act and needed to act immediately and did. We'll review all of that now next week, in line with the 3-week review of all of the countries and the traffic lights. And by this time next week, we'll know whether they need to stay in that category or move somewhere else. I don't have that information until the Joint Biosecurity Centre present it to us, which they'll do next week.
I'd put it to you, Grant Shapps, that it doesn't really make sense to treat any European country differently from anyone else. Because, of course, if you're someone who's in France and you want to get to the UK, all you need to do is hop across the border to a country on the Amber list, and you could easily come across from the Netherlands or from Belgium or from Spain or from Italy, all countries that have free-flowing travel for double-jabbed people and have completely open borders to France and its Beta variant. Isn't there some sort of inconsistency here? We're pretending that borders exist within the European Union that simply don't.
Well, I mean, what you're saying is somebody could lie, and they could, but bear in mind if they did, they'd be subject to fines and possibly imprisonment as well, because it breaks the law to lie about where you've been before coming to the UK, and a requirement of coming here is you have to fill in a passenger locator form, whoever you are, to say where you've been. So, yes, someone could do that in the same way as somebody could break any law, but if they do, they're subject to fines and potentially imprisonment. So not a good idea.
It's more than just people lying, isn't it? It's people who could perfectly truthfully be living in, for example, Belgium and be maybe sharing a house with someone who's popped over to France and come back and brought back Beta, shared it with them, and then as a result they come over here completely quarantine-free. The borders within the EU are so porous that, I mean, it does seem to be quite a curious decision that we seem to be making these judgments on a national level rather than a supranational level.
Yeah, no, I don't agree with that. And I think the evidence is against what you're saying, because, for example, there have been many times during this coronavirus outbreak where France and Germany have closed the borders, France and Italy, or lots of countries within the EU have closed the borders to each other. So travel hasn't been as unrestricted as you're saying. It is the case now with the EU COVID passport that it's becoming a norm, if you like, that double vaccinated people are able to, fully vaccinated, are able to start to travel. And we've seen us recognise that with us saying the EU, although, as you say, for the moment, that will be coming from Monday, people from the EU who are fully vaccinated will be able to travel to the UK. That only comes in on Monday. We'll be reviewing the France position later next week, and we'll have to see what that data shows. But, it is reality that different countries are treated in different ways, even within the EU itself.
And Grant Shapps, a lot of people are getting in touch about they're happy that countries are moving to, the amber list and green list, and they won't have to quarantine if they're double jabbed. But they're saying actually that one of the things that's stopping us from travelling is the price of tests, and the fact that tests are such a huge sort of financial burden, particularly on the lower income families. I know one of our colleagues here, she had to pay for her family £800 just to get all the testing, COVID tests that they needed to do. So I have a question from Nick here, one of our viewers, who says, when will the extortionately priced testing for fully vaccinated travellers end? They can't genuinely claim there are affordable options out there for everyone, as this simply isn't true. It's not fair, is it, for poorer families to have to pay these extortionate prices? when they just want to go on their family holiday?
Yeah, look, the world has changed. The coronavirus is a reality, and unfortunately, one of the things we need to do is keep very close track on it. And one of the things that everyone's learned the last year and a half is you need to know where the virus is. You need to know about the variants, and so testing, unfortunately, is just a necessary evil in travel. Our view is that those tests shouldn't be done on the NHS because it takes necessary test capacity away for what is, by and large, when you travel, a discretionary, not always, but usually a discretionary activity. The price of those tests, I agree, were very, very high, and a couple of things happened. First of all, because double vaccinated people, with the exception, as you said, of France, will be able to only take a single test and not have to quarantine. That's half the cost because it's only one test when you come back. And secondly, I said we would, and we have really worked hard with 408, I think it is, private providers. I see on the Gov UK website pointing to the private providers, work to push down the price of those tests. They've come down from hundreds of pounds to tens of pounds generally for those tests, and we'll carry on pushing it harder. But I'm afraid, we do just have to accept that international travel is different to the way it was a couple of years ago before this virus. I have to tell you, I think testing will probably remain a key part of traveling for quite some time. What we want to see is it to be, as unobtrusive and as inexpensive as possible. And we've seen sort of tour operators do testing for £20 and that sort of thing. There are links on the website for £20 and £30. It's not as expensive as it was. It is still a cost, and no one can deny that.
Well, that's a clear answer, Grant Shapps. Thank you for that. We've got a question now from one of our viewers, Johnny, who asks, do travellers require COVID insurance when they go abroad?
Typically now insurance is coming with COVID insurance included, but do check your policy very carefully. It also depends where you're going to as well, because if you're going to the EU, we have our reciprocal arrangements for either what's called the EHIC card or now a British version of that. So that will provide some of your medical cover as well. The answer is check very carefully, particularly when it comes to cancelling trips. We know that countries do sometimes have to be moved very, very quickly from one category to another, so that your ability to be able to cancel your flight, to cancel your accommodation and be insured for all that, incredibly important. So please check the small print.
Welcome to the GB News YouTube channel. You can watch us live 24 hours a day, catch up on your favourite shows and join in the conversation in the comments below.
Don't forget to subscribe and you'll never miss any of our exclusive content.